Welcome to today's podcast, Behind the Lens with Alan Howe. Today, our guest is Patrick Galang. So Patrick is the owner and founder of a company called Setters and Closers, where they go out and allocate appointment setters as well as sales closers for online businesses. This is a really good chat about not only sales, which I learned a little bit, I learned a few things through this process, but also want to, we talk about self-doubt, we talk about energy, talk about emotional resilience. There's a few really cool things that we talk about, so make sure you hang tight. Today's podcast is powered by Triple Effect Media, so we create 6 months worth of video content for YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok, and film it all in a space of 2 days. So everything from scripting, filming, editing, as well as publishing to all the different social media channels, up to 3 videos weekly. So if you're interested in finding out more, check out tripleeffect.com.au. Otherwise, let's get the show started. Boom. Welcome to Behind the Lens. Today I am joined by Patrick. Is it pronounced Galang?
Yep.
Galang, yeah, awesome. So Patrick is an absolute legend. He's the owner of Setters and Closers, who recruit and manage sales teams and online entrepreneurs. We've used Patrick for our team and a whole range of other things as well. Patrick is an absolute legend, very, very down-to-earth guy. For when you think about someone who recruits salespeople and things like that, I actually, have to pinch myself at how genuine and things that you are. Sometimes, obviously, you get that sort of notion that salespeople are like it's obviously, a dog-eat-dog world and all those other things, but Patrick's a really down-to-earth guy. One of the reasons why I wanted to obviously bring you on, Patrick, was I really get on, we have really intelligent conversations. You've just got a wealth of wisdom. And I'm hoping to explore a little bit about your story and what you can sort of share to our audience as well. So welcome to the potty.
Sure, yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's good to chat. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome, dude. All right, so let's start from the beginning. Obviously, I've given you a little bit of an intro. But do you want to just share a little bit more about the work that you do and some of the businesses that you work with, just so that people have a little bit of context as to who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, for sure. So, typically we'll work with, online businesses, coaches, course creators, anyone who kind of operates their business in a remote setting. That's kind of the main thing that we do. I come from a financial planning background, up until 2019, I was a director of sales for a finance company and decided to quit the corporate life to get online and, sort of ended up actually as a closer back in 2019. I came in as a full-time closer and learned how to set appointments. And, that was a lot of fun. That was kind of how I got introduced into the coaching space. And, by the time I got in, it just opened a whole new world that I've never seen before, being able to work remote and manage your time and basically sell, high ticket items. Like at that time I was selling something for about 10 grand. So, I quickly, it was a bad start when I thought it'd be a pretty easy space to sort of jump in on, but it wasn't. I had a bit of struggle at the beginning and, that's what led me to do appointment setting and sort of take a step back. And once I got the hang of it, I just picked up a few different clients and, a couple of them asked where they could find, salespeople as the teams kind of expanded. And I kind of just threw it out there and said, I'll build your team, build your sales process for you. And that's how I got my first client, sort of just throwing an offer out there. And I started getting connected with more closers and more appointment setters, more staff here in Australia and especially in the US. And that's kind of how Setters and Closers happened organically in that way.
Beautiful. Man, I'd love to understand, you mentioned there, obviously there's a lot more to it than just jumping in and closing a deal for someone. Obviously there's a lot of lessons and things like that. What are some of those, I guess, because what we're talking about here for people who may not be familiar with the words, even appointment setters, closers, and all those other things, is we're talking about effectively having almost like a contractor come in under certain terms and agreements based on commission or based on a salary or a combination of both that comes in and helps a team to, either help generate appointments or qualify appointments and or, close business as part of a sales process. Obviously,
Yeah.
bringing in an external person and working under that contractor sort of phase is perfect, especially for a business like ours, where we operate predominantly from home. We work across Australia, but we're not like we've got different videographers and different, people across the country. So it's really, we can serve people within, the major cities and all those other things. And hence we could take on someone who's based in and around Australia. And so coming back to the question, what are some of those big challenges for someone who's like interested in making money, whether it's, working within a business or in that space? What are some of the biggest challenges that people face?
Yeah, it's a funny thing, right? When you are looking for people to kind of do some online sales, because everyone has different motivations, obviously, when they're working. But a big one for people doing online sales in the first place is that time freedom. And it also comes with, they want to make $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month.
Yeah.
And to do that, in a few hours, only a few hours a day, it's definitely possible, but it's not easy, and you still have to work for it, right? So that's probably the biggest challenge, is getting your head around the effort that's required to make good money, especially if you've come from a high-paying corporate background, or you're just used to consistency in income. Just wrapping your head around that and having some flexibility. You might go for a couple of weeks where you're not really making too much, and then all of a sudden, the marketing kicks in, and then all your clients and all your follow-ups sort of come in, and you're making good money as a sales rep for an online business. So, and it's also like a fairly dynamic environment to be in with small businesses or online businesses where they're reliant on traffic from paid sources or even organic. So, just getting your head around the consistency of that and being consistent in the actions that's done, that's kind of what leads to having that flexibility and that time freedom. So I would say that's the biggest challenge that anyone sort of coming into this space and, wanting to become a sales rep, that's really the big thing to get your head around. And if you do that, you'll do really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's obviously, like, from a business owner's point of view, it's obviously having someone come in who's going to fit the culture, fit, those important aspects, which you obviously, like, I think that's one of the things that I've noticed when we did interact and whatnot as well, is you took a lot of time to really understand how I work and operate, some of the values, and then found someone who, sort of fit that criteria, as well as, the opportunity that person brings and all those other things as well. So I'd love to go back, take a step back. You mentioned that obviously you've been in the corporate world. You've now, jumped into, appointment setting or worked as a closer for a company. What had you make that shift? Like, what was it about the corporate world or not about it that had you go, fuck this, I want to get out?
Yeah, I'm out. I was probably 12 months. I probably stayed 12 months too long. Because, you get to a point sometimes in your career where things are good. You've got a good lifestyle. You're doing well, living pretty comfortable. But there's like a sense of trying to hit the next level of your potential that sometimes gets capped at certain places. And it's not necessarily the fault of a business that caps it, but just in your mind where you can go and how far you can push that. And it wasn't necessarily even about money, but just the challenge of the next thing. And so, when I decided to leave, it took a while to go, oh, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do this and that? And that kind of held me back from actually leaving, because I was trying to find something that I could go into. And, I talked to my wife, and we're at Byron one day. She goes, why don't you just do it? What do you got to lose? You just kind of just go, and then you probably have a better headspace to figure it out. So I did. I just resigned with nowhere to go, and I had 3 months And even in that 3 months notice that I had, I didn't do anything like any different. I wasn't looking for my next move, or I just wanted to see it through. And then when I got out, even then it wasn't really clear. I tried a few different things or looked at different opportunities, and a colleague of mine, old colleague of mine, we caught up, and he said, this is what I'm doing. I'm just in the coaching space. They were doing like about $1 million a year. He said, it's pretty simple. We run ads, we get people in, and then we close the deals, and that's it. And at the time, there's tons of margin, like in the coaching space. If you do it right, there's actually a fair bit of margin to move, and that's what we got talking about. Doing some commission only work, and that's kind of how I stepped into it. But yeah, it took a little while just trying to figure out in my head, like, what is that next level. I knew I wanted to try to do something that was mine and that I could do that. And, in the middle of trying to figure it out, I kind of just fell into the closing side of things because I could manage my time and, I guess, be self-employed, in a way where I had the ability to make money as well. So yeah, it was a tough time, tough time of like stagnation, I guess. Yeah. And to a point where I couldn't be stagnant anymore and just fell off the side of it. So.
Absolutely. No, I can definitely relate when it comes to the corporate world. I just felt like there was a point where I just felt like I couldn't be me, and I had to almost, I wear my heart on my sleeve. And I can get quite emotional when I disagree with something or when something's really not aligned. And there was almost elements where I couldn't keep it in. And like I realized there's no way, like I can't play the political game where you hide and bury your emotion to get it to an outcome or a decision. I'm very real and very raw, unfortunately, like it or not. And I just found that being able to work, like you're sort of talking about, working from home, working from an environment where I get a little bit more control over time, I can sort of manage not only my emotions and the passion, the ups and the downs of it, but also manage, what's happening in that as well.
Yeah, for sure, man.
There is something I'm really keen to know, because you're so calmly spoken, and when I think of salespeople, I think of someone who's like, again, I started the podcast, and maybe it's not really fair to you either, but like most people think of salespeople like old sales. The ultimate sales role is probably like a used car salesman, right? Someone who can sell something that's got a few problems, but convince someone that this is the right car for you. It's probably outside of their budget and things like that. You've just got a very different energy about you, very calm. Like to listen, and I'm really keen, like from someone who appoints salespeople into different businesses, what would you say, like, and I'm going to specifically talk to you, like if you needed to jump into one of the appointment roles and things like that, what are 3 to 5 different points that you think are really crucial to being a successful salesperson within a company?
Yeah, great question, man. So I guess, like over a period of time, if I could just go back, I had some really good mentors, like in sales, and I had two opposing ones. One who was like the classic salesperson, kind of talk you down and then get the sale. Yeah. So it's a little bit aggressive, but people didn't like him, but they respected him, and that's what I took out of it. Yep. I didn't like the style of that. And then I had another mentor I learned from who was like the opposite, like so passive, and then he would barely close on the spot, but people always come back. So they both did a really good job of converting. There's just one was just done on the day. Like if it was either a yes or no on that day, and then that was the end of it. And the other one was like, okay, cool, you go away and think about it, and you come back, and they both had the same percentages. So I kind of found my way through that, what I liked and what I didn't like, and what felt weird, in conversations. And like, say for example, with handling objections and things like that, like that's probably one of the number one skills to have as a sales rep, is to be able to handle objections. Now, the difference is, where do you handle the objection? Do you handle it at the end, or do you handle it at the beginning and the middle of a sales call? And I just found handling objections right at the end like a little bit more uncomfortable for me. And you know, like, so that's kind of where I picked off from those guys. So yeah, as far as skills are concerned, definitely objection handling is a key skill to master. Some people do it really well at the end. For me, I was never really that good at the end, so I worked on doing it during the call itself. So a lot of pre-objection handling. So I just got really efficient at doing that. So I got less, you know, sort of at the end. So that's a really important skill to have, and to be able to pre-objection handle. You really have to listen and, you know, observe what are the things that they're coming up with, so that you can ask questions to draw out the objection. So, you know, being able to listen, and I think the second skill to know is what questions to ask. And I know that's probably like fairly obvious, but it's knowing what to ask when is probably really, really, really important. And sort of go on a quick story of that. One of the best sales experiences that I've ever been in was when I was buying a barbecue. So, you know, I went into barbecues galore, and I was looking for I had my mindset on a Weber barbecue. I said, oh, yeah, I just want to buy this. And the lady said, oh, cool, yeah, no, I can grab that for you. Can I just ask, just to make sure that it's the right barbecue for you? Let's ask you a couple of questions. I said, yeah, go for it. And then that's when she went down the route of, you know, asking me, what am I doing with it? What do I like about it? What don't I like about it? Can I show you another one? And then she shifted my perspective. And that's kind of one of those things that I thought, oh man, like, she asked me just the right question at the right time, rather than just giving it to me. And she could have just made an easy sale. So, you know, that's probably number 2, you know, objection handling, listening, and asking the right questions. And I think if there's another skill to learn, is there's a lot of salespeople who aren't patient enough. I think that's one of the things that kills deals, is that they're not patient enough. What I mean is, you know, they kind of go through, and when I listen to calls, I can hear it when they're trying to just ask the question, the next question, and the next question in the process or in the script. And it's pretty obvious, because someone would be laying their heart out to you, and then all of a sudden, oh, you know, look, I feel you, I understand. So tell me about, you know, the money situation at the moment. Like, and it's just totally off the path of where the convo was going, and it's a little bit abrupt. And they might not feel it, but the others do. So sometimes you have to take your time too in asking the question, and just be patient and listen in, you know. So that would probably be my top 3 if people want to get really good at sales.
Yeah. Good 3 skills as well. I think, yeah, look, and I can relate to the sales coach thing. I had a sales coach in 2022, and I learned exactly what I don't want to do. Like, he was aggressive. He had me like come up with deals on the spot. And like, honestly, it was an absolute nightmare for me. It's just not how I wanted to work and operate. And it taught me a lot. And I think that's really important as well, is like, I think it's a life lesson in general, isn't it? Like, sometimes you need to know what you don't want, and need to sort of go through processes and systems that don't represent you to know what it is that you do want, and reaffirm what you already know, but needing to test, you know, the alternative and see, is there something that I'm missing here? Because I definitely learnt more by having a sales coach, but I learned more about what I don't want just as much as
the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And everyone's got their own individual style, you know, like, you've got your own personality. There's probably like a universal framework, but there's definitely, you know, as they say, it's not what you say, how you say it. I think each person has their own how to sort of get a point across. So you just use the right frameworks, and it's more natural then.
Absolutely. So look, one of the things, obviously, with being an effective salesperson, and in your form, you actually wrote, you know, being able to adapt to situations and pivot to opportunities where they arise. I think when I read that, I'd imagined it sort of through a sales process, looking for opportunities, looking for more so opportunities on things to talk about and things like that. But I don't know if that also meant from like a business aspect as well. I'd love to understand, like, how I'm assuming you hear and see opportunities by listening. It's really evident by even just the way that you're sitting and interacting in this conversation. You're a really good listener, and you obviously take and it's a very powerful. Especially from a sales point of view, it's a very powerful seat to be in as well.
For sure.
I guess, sorry, my question was, I'd love to understand more about, like, is that something intentional that you do? Hello, amazing human. This is just a quick, brief message to remind you to share the love. And what do I mean by sharing the love? What I mean is, if you know someone who might get value from this episode or from this interview, make sure you share this episode with them. Also, if you are enjoying this interview and may enjoy other interviews like it, make sure you hit the subscribe button or follow button on whichever platform you're listening or watching on. And lastly, if you're really enjoying this episode, if you really want to share the love, make sure you leave a rating. A positive rating with lots of love is much appreciated. Otherwise, let's get back to the show.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. It definitely is. At the start, when you're developing any sort of skill, I think you do it intentionally. And then after a while, it's it tends to be more natural, in that way. So I think that's always a good thing to have happen. With regards to the listening part, just the more different offers, I think when you work in a lot of different offers, you have to develop that quickly, because it's just, you're dealing with different people at different stages of their life buying different things, right? So you kind of have to learn the client journey and how they got to the position that they're in. And, that's the only real way to figure it out, because you just can't study. You can't necessarily just study things in that way. So I think that's kind of where the intention became, more evident, is as I worked with different clients and as I went on different offers. I just had to understand the client more than anything else. So it was always about listening. And when we would create like a sales script or a sales process, it's really based on client journey. Like that's really what it is. And understanding where the client comes from, the marketing, how they come into the funnel and how they come into a phone call in the first place. We can tell a lot about the objections that's going to come up and why people aren't showing up and why, people are asking certain questions. And we sort of take that as best as we can and feed that back into marketing. And, that's kind of how you have that good communication. So yeah, it's definitely something that, you do intently in the beginning and you get used to it. And that's kind of just that's how opportunities come about, like when you're talking to people and you can, like when you're in sales and you can go back to marketing and say, hey, these guys are saying this or asking these same questions all the time. Can you create some content around that? Because I think that'd be really powerful. And sort of vice versa, or they're not asking this question enough. Maybe that's something that we can bring up, and it just helps the sales cycle move faster, really. Yeah.
I'm just going to pause. I don't know if can you see the sign that's sitting on my screen?
I can, yeah.
Okay. I have no idea.
Yeah.
No, I think it might be to do with the camera. Just give me a sec.
Yours? Yeah. Says it's still recording here.
Yeah. I don't know. All right. It's gone now.
Oh, it's gone now.
All right. Clip that. All right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Good on tech.
I think it was recording on my end, so if I'm talking, you just put me on the front.
No, that's fine.
I think.
Good. All right. So, absolutely. Like, I think, and I really appreciate the approach as well. And obviously, your approach needs to be different for everyone. Some people, you sort of do need to speed up your pitch and your tone, and I think that's obviously like you said, listening is obviously listening, but also optimizing their own pitch, pace, tone, things like that. to match the person that they're speaking to as well. So, yeah, I think that they're all really, really cool points that you've mentioned. Take me back to, obviously you mentioned you've exited the corporate world and you've started your own business. I've obviously been there myself as well. But there's obviously a lot of self-doubt that you can sort of go through. There's a lot of things that sort of go through your head, whether like, is it going to work out? Is it like, am I going to make it? And things like that. The dog's in the background as well.
Yeah, I was going to say. Hey,
what's your dog's name?
That's Frankie.
Frankie? Frankie, really? That's the name of our dog as well. Aussie Bulldog. There you go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But
so for those listening, Patrick's got a dog named Frankie. What sort of dog is it?
He's a King Charles Cavalier.
There you go. Yeah.
He likes
awesome.
Yeah.
So my question was like, what are some of the demons, or what are some of the talk to me about some of the things that you had to overcome transitioning from the corporate world to even hopping in as an appointment setter or a closer, to even building this business. Like for you, what are some of those biggest some of those things that you had to overcome?
Yeah, I think it's across the board. Like I don't think it escapes anybody at any level. But there is always that comfort when you've been doing something for such a long time and you're getting paid every week regardless of sort of what happens, and getting outside of that in your when there's no backstop, you can't just sort of fall down and someone will catch you. There's always that doubt of can you actually do it, because when you're in business, because of the inconsistency, especially at the beginning, it's like one week you're going, oh man, is this going to work out, and then you get a little kick, something goes really well, and then that helps you push through, and then maybe it starts to come away from that, and then it's just a cycle that sort of happens. So like any time, especially in sales, not just business, but just in sales, you do go those ups and downs. It's just trying to maintain that energy, and how quickly you can get out of that question in your head, where it's, oh man, am I actually going to be able to do this? Because when you start asking that question, I know for me, when I go through that and I go, oh man, is this, am I going to be able to make it? I start looking for other things, so I start looking for other solutions. That's not really going to help. It's not really going to help solve the problem that I have right there, which is, to do things to create more business. So, and I've spoken to a lot of really successful people, and I always want to know the same question from them about self-doubt, and they all have it, right? At any sort of level, even when they're doing, the one that I spoke to who was making the most money, they had a company that was doing like $100 million. And at each level that he got up, he got stuck at some point because, he was wondering, oh man, can I take my team through this? Am I fit enough to actually lead the team to that next level? Am I good enough to, talk to investors and take their money and turn it into something else? So, it's different problems they're having when you're making that sort of money, but like the doubt and the the self-doubt, it's real. Like I don't think you ever escape it. It's just the difference with those guys that make it through to the other side. The thing that I've learned and I try to implement is that they acknowledge it. Yeah, I'm doubting myself, but they just get over it real quick, and they just kind of move on real fast. Whereas sometimes, I know for me, when I was starting, you'd have a bit of doubt and you kind of dwell on it for a while. You kind of sit there and you ask the same question over and over again of why it's not going to work. Whereas they kind of do the opposite and they just get on with it. So, that's probably the biggest thing that I've picked up from it. And yeah, it's definitely a challenge, like an ongoing challenge.
Would you call that emotional resilience? Or what would you the idea of just getting on with it? Like, is there a better name that you would label, that you would put with that at all?
Emotional resilience is a good one. I kind of got it, from the guys that they just take action, like they're just action takers, So whatever's going on in their head, they just do something, they implement something real fast, and then that just takes them away from the thinking. So it's more that they'll just take action on the next thing that they need to do and kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was probably the best way. So whenever I'm, like say, business is going tough and you go, how am I going to get through it? The activity that you need to do, so you just got to go and do it. Yeah. Like that's typically what they'll do. So if there's a proposal that you need to send, if there's a DM that you need to send, it's like, okay, man, am I going to be able to do this? They just grab their phone and just send the DM, or get that proposal out to that client, or make that phone call that you need to make in order to, keep moving forward. And I think they operate off the classic, the action precedes motivation. So rather than waiting to get motivated, I'm going to get motivated to, build my business. It's like, okay, I'm going to build my business. And as I build it, it will motivate me to keep going and to keep pushing forward. So I think, that's probably the big shift in the mindset when it comes to that. So
beautiful. Mate, I guess just before we sort of wrap up and finish up, thank you so much for your time. Like I've written down, I think there's some really powerful things, not only from a sales point of view, but anyone who's interested in, potentially moving into that era of, working and operating as an appointment setter or a closer. I think there's some really valuable tips. But my last question, this is actually something I'm really fascinated about. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? Like what would you like to be doing?
Yeah, well, we just had a big shift in what our business is sort of doing. After doing it for a while, you kind of know what you like, what you don't like, and where your time is best leveraged to then make income. So, we're doing a pivot now in our business where, we're working with portfolio partners, or, any new clients are really just going to be referrals. And we're actually moving into the space of launching our own private equity fund, which is really exciting. So working with, working with business owners by acquiring, their business, or, funding startups, and working with investors to basically get their money and invest it. So that's kind of the next phase that we're going through now. And I think that will be like our 5-year plan, is to go down that route, because, a lot of times, I get a bit bored, like doing business, kind of doing the same thing. And this is a great way to kind of use use my experience of investing and everything else in different interests, in different businesses. Absolutely. So that's probably what we're excited about in the next 5 years, my wife and I, is getting out there and, building this fund, raising money and investing it and returning some capital, in the short term. What's your secret
sauce in all of that? Like, where do you excel?
Yeah, great question, man. I think the way that we've kind of constructed it and come up with the plan, because, when you're getting investor money, typically, the investors who's going to be investing in us are sophisticated investors. So they've already done well for themselves. And if they're investing 200,000, if they lose it, they lose it. They don't really care. I mean, they do, but it doesn't hurt them as much. So one of the things in creating it is, we have to explore what we're really good at and being able to implement it. And I think for me, it's more the relationship building and the networking.
Is that
I've been able to do on
Patrick's
online
sources? That's what I'm really keen to understand. Not only from I'd love to know what you like, what lights you up.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure, man. Like connecting with people and networking it wasn't a skill that I really had before until I started working online. So getting connected with people I never would have thought I'd access before. I think it's just my ability, if I'm talking about like a particular secret source, is my ability to communicate at that level. Yeah. To be able to build a relationship with someone who is probably 100 steps ahead of me is something that I've really tried to get better at, and I feel like I've gotten pretty good at it now. So if anything, that's what I would say is getting myself in the room with other people, in that type of capacity. So I would say that'd be it for me.
Well done. I'm just constantly reminded every time, like there's so much calmness in your energy. Like, do you meditate or do breath work or everything? Like, how do you, like, you are very neutral in your energy.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it doesn't work to my advantage. I'm a little bit too neutral sometimes. But I kind of do. I don't meditate enough. I'd say that I want to meditate more. But definitely a little bit of breath work helps. Just if anyone knows, Huberman and Huberman Lab, he's got some great stuff on just being able to get yourself in state by using some breath work, some really basic stuff. And I think that's, I'm trying to do a lot more of that, to not just to keep the same energy level, but also to be able to moderate it. So, I can lift or get down. But I think overall, the way that that I process it is like I'm a bit of a mirror to that other person too. So like you got a calm energy, and that's kind of why I guess my energy is the same. But if you were all over the place, I would say that I would kind of mirror that, for at least a small period of time until I got into my state. So I think, that's kind of where I get it from. The only thing I won't do is if someone's got a really low energy, I won't stoop down to that energy level. I'll kind of keep to a certain level. But, I would say I'm a little bit of a mirror in that way. So, if you think I've got a calm energy, it's because you have to. Well, right now as we're talking, right?
Yeah, so. and I do it like just on what you just mentioned as well. Like you won't snoop down to almost like a toxic energy. Like I had a call with a guy who could tell he just had a really shitty weekend. Like it was first thing Monday morning, and he just didn't want to. It seemed like it was the last thing he wanted to do was be on the call. And after I called it out, he sort of quickly turned it around and said, no, I do want to be on this call. Like, I'm happy to be here. Because I said, no, you sure? Like, I'll make it another time. If, the last thing I want to do is drag you through something that you don't want to be a part of, or, But yeah, I think it's very interesting. Very, very good sales tactics that you use anyway. And look, it makes complete sense. I can see that with the rooms that you're looking to get in as well. And that calmness as well, like they have, like I call it emotional resilience. But that calmness is a calmness that obviously 7 and 8 figure, businesses, even beyond that, they really do have that calmness, that emotional security, if you will. And the resilience to be able to have 1,000,001 things going on in the background, and knowing that I'm going to be present and really just enjoy this moment for what it is, this interaction. And it's really interesting, isn't it? And I reflect on your energy because of very similar things like the breath work, like the meditation that I'm doing as well. And I can sense it in just the way that you work and operate. So yeah. Awesome. Well,
I just got off the podcast with Andrew, Andrew Cruzy, and man, he's all about that. So after that podcast, I was like, okay, I've got to be mindful of that actually now.
I actually worked with Andrew Cruzy as well. I've done an interview with him as well. Yeah, no, I worked with him. It was probably I was working with him just before I left my full-time job, but I was running a digital marketing agency, and he was like my coach at the time. And I follow him to this day as well. Great dude. So I'm keen. Yeah, he's actually on my list of targets for a podcast as well. So nice.
For sure, man. Reach out to him. He's a good chat.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. All right, mate. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Appreciate it, man.
I'd love to understand, I guess if people are interested in reaching out to you or connecting with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, just on Facebook, I would say that's probably where I'm most active in my DMs, at least.
Yeah.
On Facebook, if you just look up Patrick Galang, you'll. I don't think there's not too many there with my name, so you'll be able to connect with me.
Yeah.
On there, my DM's always open.
Yeah, beautiful. And that would include like someone who's interested in, venturing down the path of becoming an appointment setter or closer. Is that the best place to reach you?
That's the best place. Yeah. Otherwise, settersandclosers.com. So setters and the letter N closers.com. That's a good place to reach out as well. If there's any, sales reps or anyone that wants to know a little bit more about that side of our business, like all our contact details and everything is there. There's video explainers of exactly what we do. That would probably be the best place. If anyone just wants to reach out, Facebook is just as good. Yeah.
And as you can sort of tell, even from this interview, he's just a all-round guy. He's just I like to call it, say, knockabout bloke, in the sense of like you can just have an easy conversation. Very, you give really, really good feedback, very direct, but also like very fair at the same time. So all qualities that I admire and everything else as well. So make sure you go and check it out. You also have a podcast as well?
Yeah. Yep. It's called the Entrepreneur Unplugged podcast. Similar, to this. Is just an open conversation. It's it's on YouTube. It's my handle on YouTube is it's Patrick Galang. That's kind of where I host it every Friday. We do something. We've got a good lineup, I think, of some seriously successful people who are probably similar to what we're talking about here, have faced some adversity to get there. So
beautiful.
It's good.
Right. Well, thank you for taking the time. Hope you enjoyed this podcast, and tune in next week. That is the end of today's podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, as I mentioned before, make sure you share the love, share it with a friend, family member, or otherwise. Make sure to give us a subscribe or even a positive rating on the various platforms. And if you're interested in finding out more about Triple Effect and who we are, what we do, head to tripleeffect.com.au. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next interview.